Well, thanks, Krister, for joining us today for a little bit more of an in-depth idea about your thoughts and your views for the way that e-commerce, the way that live shopping is going to go in 2024, some of the predictions that we can see. Can we just start off, Krister? We can see your title there, Senior Executive Advisor of Spree. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, both pre and also what you do at Spree now?
Right. So my name is Krister, and I've been working in digital e-commerce and media and marketing for the past over 15 years, working for different companies, different industries, from IKEA to Nokia, Procter & Gamble, Arla Foods, and lately also at Samsung. I've also spent some time, almost 2 years at Firework, which is a SaaS commerce platform. And now I'm the senior executive partner at Spree. So I'm helping Spree kind of navigate through the challenges that most kind of e-commerce and retail companies are having.
Perfect. We've just put out an ebook, which has 5 people who are experts in e-commerce who will be have spoken to as well, and we'll be talking to in a webinar. You wrote an article where you kind of coined the phrase hybrid retail. Can you expand a little bit more about what this concept actually entails and why you see it as so critical to the future of e-commerce in 2024?
Well, I don't think I kind of invented it. I think it's been invented before, but I wrote on the topic hybrid retail, and it's because of my experience working in e-commerce and big enterprise companies, and kind of the challenges you're having both from a consumer perspective, but also from internally, how you organize yourself in terms of meeting kind of the new consumer and what they're looking for today, and also how do you drive growth. I mean, last year was a tough year for many companies in terms of e-commerce growth, and I think now it's time to kind of start investing in growth and technologies. And I think hybrid is a new, I would say, an onset of how you would look at your business, or how you would look at the consumer experience. So it's not either or, it's not offline or online. It's actually both, to actually deliver that kind of amazing customer experience that is needed. I mean, also customer expectations, they change over time, and I think now customers are requiring a lot more from companies. If I want to buy your product, you need to deliver that personalized, amazing experience. Otherwise, I will go somewhere else to shop. So I think that's a need for kind of helping companies to grow again, go back to growth. But I think hybrid is also, how do you meet those new consumer demands out there, but also how you organize yourself. So not looking at channels, looking at one experience, and that's the experience you need to deliver to your customers or clients.
I thought that was really something that actually kind of flagged in my mind as I read the article, about the fact that this is not just about going down another channel. It's not just about, maybe some people might say, this is not just about joining TikTok or joining Instagram. This is about those exceptional experiences that you say that involve service, personalization, trust, etc., etc. If it's not just about joining a channel, if it's not just about another marketing avenue, how can retailers specifically create these type of exceptional experiences that you talk about?
Yeah, no, but I think it starts with kind of the technical platforms that you need to invest in to be able to capture data, to understand more of what your consumers are doing, or your clients or customers are doing at the moment. Second, I think it's about organizing yourself. So you need to look at your organization in terms of not put, typically you put your organization into sales channels or functions. I think those are the old days. So you have a marketing team over here, you have a sales team over here, you have a digital team over here, and you have a social team over there. I think those times are kind of over. You need to look at it from what I would say like a hybrid organization, to be able to deliver the best experience to your clients. And I think that's a way of it. I mean, it's not an easy task, making big changes in big companies. It's of course difficult. I'm not saying this is easy, but I think this is a way of looking at your business and your organization. How do you organize yourself to be able to deliver that experience to your customers, and to also, to grow your business? So I think that's also what is kind of impacting, kind of that is a challenge for most companies at the moment.
Is there anybody doing that particularly well at the moment? Are there any examples of big organizations or small organizations that have kind of just got that right? They've understood that they need to do live shopping. They've understood that they need to have some kind of hybrid approach. And they've understood that in order to do that well, they're going to have to completely reorganize their teams. Is there anybody who's sort of done that really well that you can kind of give as a sort of shine a light on someone who's, well, they got it and they made it work?
Yeah. I mean, in the context of live shopping, I think many references the kind of the Chinese kind of explosion of live shopping, but I think it's not really relevant for the Western world, Europe and US, because it's a different space. It's also a different way of how consumers are using platforms, but it's also driven a lot about promotions, and I think many companies don't only want to drive promotions. You also want to talk about your brand, of course. But of course, promotions is needed. So I think that's a big difference if you reference to China and the explosion that live shopping. I mean, now it's driving billions and billions of dollars in revenue in China, but I think it's still kind of a bit taking off in Europe. And to name a few companies, I think there's one company, which is Shello Company, which is a Swedish consumer electronics brand. I think they have really embraced live shopping for the past I would say 3-4 years. And they have also organized themselves, which, at least to my understanding, I haven't worked there, but they have also organized themselves to be a bit more, hybrid in that sense. If I want to link it back to kind of the topic for this interview. Second one, I think globally there's Apple, for example. Apple, I think, has done a great example of how they adding one-to-one video to their clients. I think they've only launched this in the US at the moment, but it's enabling that one-to-one conversation with your client when they're shopping. And it's about inspiration, it's about educating your clients, but also be there to answer any questions that your client or customer might have. So those are kind of two examples, and there's many more. But I think Nike is a good example of. I haven't seen any more live shopping, but I'm hoping that Nike will also launch live shopping. But if you look at how they organize themselves in terms of driving D2C, I think that's a good example of a brand that kind of understood that D2C is really important for them to have that kind of direct dialogue with the end consumer. Also, not only online but also offline. So I think those are kind of three good examples of how they have, managed to kind of put the organization, up for success.
And use the technology. I think all of the examples that you mentioned there, particularly when you started talking about the really big players such as Apple, it's using the technology that they've got at their disposal to be able to kind of create those experiences, have that customer relationship, and actually kind of merge the hybrid. You're coming from Spree, so obviously that there is a crucial element, but why is live shopping technology such as Spree's platform so welded to this concept of hybrid retail? How does it bring together the best of this physical in-store experience and then digital commerce that we also know and love?
Right. I mean, there's many platforms out there in terms of enabling live shopping or live commerce to companies. But I think the main difference, because I worked with most of them in my previous roles, and I think what really stands out, if I just talk about Spree for a second, I think it's a true kind of social commerce platform, because the whole experience happens in social channels. Most other platforms, the experience happens on the brand's website. And there's different, positives, negatives with doing both. But I would see, if I look at what Spree and some of the clients that Spree is working with, it's amazing to see the sales that is happening directly from social channels, for example, Facebook or Instagram. And that is a big difference. And I haven't really seen that same level of conversion and sales having a live shopping platform on a brand.com. I haven't really seen those numbers, which is for me, one of the key reasons I also wanted to join Spree.
Because of that platform merging, if you will, like that being able to have,
and also the setup and integration is so easy. I mean, you can set it up almost within a day. You don't need months and months of integration. So I think that's also one of the reasons also clients choose to work with Spree. And I know working in a big enterprise client, you don't want too many development projects. You're having, maybe you have like 100 development projects. When we work for Samsung, for example, you don't want another one. So I think, having solutions that are easy to integrate in your current business and your current platform is really key. And also, spend less on development, because development costs money, and it's definitely a cost. So I think those are the things. And second, I think also working, enabling kind of store people, ambassadors, and merchants that are actually working in the physical store to easily kind of set it up and to run live shopping from a store that's already there. So I think that those are kind of the three things which I think is really interesting about the Spree platform. Yeah.
Do you think, and I think that makes perfect sense, with whether it's Spree or one of your competitors, right, one of the other platforms that do live shopping, that makes perfect sense. Why do you think that the social media channels themselves have, maybe I'll go as far as say struggled, but haven't really launched a kind of an equivalent of a live shopping platform such as Spree? They haven't done their own version where you can kind of integrate the social channel with your brand store like these live shopping channels can. Why do you think that is? And maybe the reason why things like TikTok Shop haven't really kicked off in Europe as much as they maybe have in Asia or the States.
Yeah, no, but I think it's about priorities. Most of these big tech companies have gone through some challenging time. Now they're back to growing their business again. But I think it's about priorities. What do you want to prioritize? And I think currently they're all prioritizing AI. That's what they're prioritizing. And they spend a huge amount of development on that. So they're not really prioritizing this. That said, there's a massive opportunity there to kind of engage and convert your social media users out there on any platform, and let's see where TikTok ends up. It looks, I mean, there's a lot of hype around TikTok Shop today, but let's see where it nets out. I mean, it's an interesting way of how they're trying to kind of go from a social platform to become more like a commerce platform. I think there's a challenge there, because most consumers, they go to TikTok for entertainment, not necessarily for shopping. So I think there's a bit of it's going to be interesting to see how TikTok kind of manages that. And I saw some report last week that the growth has kind of flattened out now for TikTok. And is it because they're launching commerce? I don't know. But it's interesting to follow, what happens. But it's clearly so that I think social channels, not having commerce integrated into your social channels, I think that's a big miss, for most companies.
You mentioned AI in regards to how the social media channels are focusing on certain things. They're focusing on AI integration rather than it maybe integrating with their own stores. And they may also say that actually, if we integrate with their own brand stores, we're actually taking them off platform anyway. So it goes against exactly what we want to do. Makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about, as we are talking about the future of 2024 or predictions and trends for 2024. But if I looked a little bit ahead of time with these kind of innovations, such as AI, what are the kind of the key trends or innovations or technology that you think will have to develop in order for hybrid retail to really take off?
Yeah. No, but I think there's a couple of things. I mean, currently, there's huge investments into improving customer service to make it more personal and engaging. And I think that's one way. I think Amazon launched, was it today? They launched their own kind of AI assistant that kind of collects and looks at all the data that's happening on Amazon.com and then tries to kind of present the best experience, all the knowledge you're having, all the customer reviews, everything you have on Amazon.com. is put into one AI assistant that will help all the clients. So I think the customer service section will really explode during 2024. And that's part of, I would say, the hybrid experience, because at some point, you know, you need to talk to somebody at customer service. If it's, you know, learning more about a product for education, or if there's any kind of typical, you know, discussions in terms of, you know, delivery time and or payments or whatever. So I think that is one key thing one key trend that I see right now. There's a lot of investments going into this. Then I think the second step is, which is interesting, you know, it's actually the virtual avatars, which is, I've been looking at this for, I don't know, 4 years, and I also done one example of running actually a live shopping with a virtual avatar, and that was really exciting to see how that works, because it's not a human in front of, you know, the experience. It's actually an avatar. So I think the avatar is also coming back a bit in 2024, because there, you know, a couple of years ago there was a lot of focus on metaverse, and it didn't really, in some way, a lot of companies invested a lot of money to build their brand experiences there. Maybe it didn't really pay off, but I think now it's coming back, where they're connecting the virtual avatars into AI engines. So I think this is an interesting area which is going to potentially, you know, be developed during this year. But I think it's a bit too early to talk about real human-like avatars. That's a bit too early, I think, for 2024. Technology is not there yet. Maybe 25, 26, then it's going to be a bit more developed. And that's going to be part of that hybrid experience, you know, for companies.
Isn't the risk that will actually segregate it more rather than making it more hybrid? Isn't there the risk that you're going too digital again, so to speak? Yeah. When you start creating avatars, when you start doing kind of, I guess, the equivalent of chatbots, you actually, there's a risk that you might actually make that divide even greater between in-store retail, where you get a human experience, and an online avatar selling to you, which is just maybe the traditional e-commerce side of things. How would someone, I'm just kind of interested, and I'm not suggesting that you have all the answers, but I'm just interested about, I wonder whether that's a risk that actually, although that sounds great technology and it sounds like a great innovation and would actually make it even easier for brands to get onto live shopping, would it not expand the divide even more?
No, but I think if you look at, for example, Generation Alpha, which is, you know, my son is part of the Generation Alpha kind of generation, and he lives already in a virtual world, virtual space. For him, it's like there's no difference, virtual or real life. For him, it's all the same already. So I think it's not. If you look at maybe millennials, you know, Gen Z, maybe that's a bit too early for avatars. But I think the coming generations, for them, it's going to be natural. There's not going to be any difference if I talk to avatar or a real person. It's going to be the same experience, and I think the avatars is not going to replace humans, but I think there's still a level of humanity. You want to speak to a real person. That's going to still be really important for consumers. But I think, you know, speaking to an avatar-like person 24/7 in a customer service call, I think that could be a bit more interesting, you know, in terms of, and just chatting with something, you know, you have somewhat of a personal, but it's not like human connection, but it's a bit more closer to a human connection. So it's not, I don't think it's either or. I think it's just different needs that different customers have, or customers have, but also when the coming kind of Generation Alpha, if you look 3, 4, 5 years ahead, they will only look for virtual experiences. So, and I think that's going to be a big challenge for, you know, maybe even bigger challenge than customers trying to adapt to Gen Z currently. I think there's going to be even bigger challenge for customers. Or companies, how do you connect with Generation Alpha, which is like they're born digital, you know, from the beginning. You know, maybe they had an iPad when they were 5 years old or 3 years old. So it's like, and they're spending time in, you know, Roblox or any other kind of these kind of virtual communities. So I think that's going to be an interesting way, you know, thing to follow. How do companies connect with that generation? But also, how do you drive your business? How do you commercialize it? I think that's going to be an interesting way of how, or to follow how clients or customers will be able to do that.
And that, I think, hits the nail on the head as to why this hybrid model, so to speak, is going to be so crucial, because then you won't be able to say, well, that's okay, we'll just strengthen the in-store experience, because the in-store experience is going to have to be digital to meet Generation Alpha's digital expectations, if you will.
Yeah.
And
sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just reiterating what I was sort of saying. Then I think that that's actually really interesting, because then you start talking about not so much about how you can revolutionize or innovate e-commerce. You start talking about how you can use the innovations of e-commerce into an in-store environment, and that becomes really fascinating about how you change the in-store experience to meet the demands of e-commerce rather than the other way around.
Yeah, and I still think, there's a need for the store, the physical store, meeting real people in a store. But I think just doing shopping in a store, maybe that will change over time. So it becomes more of a, companies need to, enable that brand experience. I think H&M is doing some interesting, pilot stores in New York at the moment where they're embracing music. So the store kind of becomes like a music experience. Of course, you can do shopping there. You can find your products, but it becomes so much more than just the typical store where you just, want to sell clothes. So I think that's an interesting, way. And I don't think there's many companies or retailers that would just shut down their retail stores. I don't think that will happen. It will still be there, but maybe kind of the main objective of the stores will be different.
And earlier in our interview, you mentioned Apple, and I think, Apple, they're trailblazers in so many ways, but I think actually their in-store experience is one way where they've actually kind of led at the forefront. And when I lived in London, I remember passing the Apple store in, what was it, Regent Street or Oxford Street, or around there. And there was always speakers blaring out music from the front. There was always often some kind of entertainment or demonstration going on. There was a theater where you could have a demonstration of the Apple software and the Apple technology. So it was already interactive. And, I don't think I've ever bought a single thing in an Apple store, but I went in and I experienced it all. And I thought, wow, this is so cool. And then I went online and bought the product. So that was like, and that was, we're talking 10 years ago, 10, 15 years ago.
Right.
So I think that's a really good example. I'm going to maybe answer myself as well. I'll answer my own question that we asked at the beginning. What brands are out there that are doing this hybrid really well? And actually that is one that has been doing it for a very long time and will probably strengthen that even more.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of interesting, things happening in the grocery business, in terms of them also turning the grocery stores into a bit more experiences. I think that's also happening slowly, though, but I think it's happening. There's a lot, several retailers in the US, but also Europe, that is turning their stores into more experiences. And I think part of that is enabling live shopping as well. So you want to have that live connection with people online. Can't be there, in physical, but they can at least connect through live shopping or live streams. I think that's an interesting, and there's some, interesting, retail stores, grocery retailers that are kind of exploring this also in the US.
Really interesting.
Yeah.
I've been kind of ending these interviews in a very similar way and kind of asking for kind of like real practical tips and advice. And so I'd like to ask the same question to you, really. If brands they've maybe heard what you've said today, they heard what others are saying about live shopping, they kind of get it. They know that they need to be doing something with live shopping. They know that they need to be doing that, and they're actually encouraged by the fact that it can work in a hybrid model, that it doesn't have to be either or. What are 3 tips that you can give today that will say, right, you want to do it? These are the 3 things that you need to either do or consider in order to make that happen.
Yeah.
Other than partnering with Spree, of course.
Right. Which is the obvious. No, but I think, just to mention a couple of things. I think one is, start testing, start piloting. I think that's the best way of learning. Also, how do you set up, a successful live shopping, for example? I think that's one kind of, and that's maybe the easy way, just to start going, start testing, start learning. I think that's kind of maybe the most important advice. I think second is to kind of look at your organization. How are you organized today? Are you organized in sales channels, or where's your marketing? Do you have, or where's your D2C team? Where do they sit, and how do you drive that overall, experience to your clients? Because we have to remember, most customers, they don't care where they buy. If it's in a store or if it's online, they buy from you. They buy from your brand, your store. So I think that kind of, having kind of the consumer focus, I think is really, really, really important to kind of start there and then build your organization based on that. And I think lastly, I think three is just we need to look at personalization. It's not only about platforms; it's also about bringing, consumer, or getting in front of consumers. And I think live shopping is a great tool to actually enable that. So you get in front of your clients, and clients can talk to you, bringing that personal human connection. I think that's also a key thing to enable for companies. And I think lastly, which is number 4, if they need any help, I mean, there's a lot of information out there, on LinkedIn, or there's a lot of good people, good companies out there. Just reach out to them, and they will most probably find or help you with that. So don't try to figure out just everything yourself. There's a lot of companies out there that can help you. So those were 4. Sorry, but
no, that's okay. 3 and a bonus. We'll take that. That's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Krister. I think it's a really interesting concept, because I think that it's probably one of the biggest fears. I know that, when I've spoken to people just generally chit-chatting about e-commerce and about live shopping and the work that I've been doing with Spree, that's one of the things they say is like, oh, this is death of the high street now. This is just a channel that's going to capitalize on the death of the high street, and that this is going to be in-store bricks and mortar stores going out of business. We're seeing it already, and this is just going to strengthen that. So I do think it's really nice to kind of hear insights about how it's not an either or, it's a hybrid model, and this is why it has to be. So thanks so much.
Yeah. Thank you, Alex.